Hello, welcome to another night of Shine Like a North Star. I am making sure that my microphone is off. You might have seen my posts on YouTube and LinkedIn and Facebook just making fun of myself that I did this beautiful Shine Like a North Star thing last week, and it was on passive aggressive behavior, and I was eloquent and brilliant and all these great things, and then I go to listen to it and it's, yeah. So I plugged in the microphone, but I didn't turn the darn thing on. Anyway, we're on top of it today. I see the microphone bars popping all around to my left here. So let's get started. Hello, I'm Carrie Burchell. I am the proud president of Shine Like a North Star. And that's our Tuesday night series. And it is part of the company North Star Consulting. You can find me at carrieburchell.com and see some other cool stuff that we have going on. So the reason why we're going to focus tonight on passive aggressive behavior is because we are seeing more and more of this type of behavior as people respond to current events, changes in COVID, pulling out of COVID, pulling back into COVID, some of our fatigue around dealing with COVID and just so many things out of our control kind of percolates up this passive aggressive behavior. So let's define passive aggressive and then learn 3 strategies to deal with passive aggressive people. I would say that passive aggressive is defined by people who are angry but pretending like they're not angry. Yeah, hopefully some ideas are flooding to your head of colleagues you've had, friends, family, maybe even yourself in different situations where it might trigger your passive aggressiveness. I'm Canadian. And one of the telltale signs of Canadian stereotypes is that we are passive aggressive. So, shame. I definitely manage this in myself. Use that emotional intelligence stuff, right? So let's see, feel free to chime in your comments, give a yes if you can think of somebody who is passive aggressive. I don't even need to know their name, just you're with me. You can imagine people that are angry and they just try to put it under the rug. Not a big deal, I'm not dealing with it, I don't want to cause ripples, when in fact that person's getting a lot of power by stuffing it under the rug, and that's sort of creating some bumps. Okay, 3 ways to deal with passive aggressive people. So the first thing is you want to recognize that they're being passive aggressive. Sometimes we sugarcoat behavior, or we say, oh, they just need some time to work it out. Or we just don't give ourselves the time or the reflection to recognize they're actually undercutting you, or they're undermining you, or they're not being transparent with you, or they're not giving you enough about where they're coming from to really even have a fighting chance to collaborate with that person. So see things for what they are. Recognize if someone is being passive aggressive. That's number 1. You're not gonna respond well and engage and work to a new place with this person unless you first recognize they're stuck. So slow down, reflect. Let's not see everything through rose-colored glasses. Sometimes people are passive aggressive because that's their way of getting power. So just see what it is. Second thing is, once you recognize it, really talk to people about how you see them coming across. So, for example, I might see somebody rolling their eyes. I can't remember which scientist I read. They were videoed hundreds of couples. I've already given you a clue to this answer. Hundreds of couples in their house, and with like a 96% certainty, the psychologist could affirm which of those couples were going to get divorced based on one nonverbal. Eye rolling. Huge. It's always a really interesting one to float out there with groups when I'm presenting, because you might not think of it as the most sort of poignant, ouchy, painful nonverbal. So you want to look for people's observations when they're being passive aggressive. Eye rolling is a big one. I remember chatting with somebody a while ago, and they rolled their eyes when they were thinking. Just kind of took them away from the focus. I know when I'm really deep in thought with people, I'll look over their left shoulder or right shoulder. And those things aren't passive aggressive, though you may think it, right? Like it's only when people kind of go, Carrie, what are you looking at? And I can sort of say, oh, yeah, sorry, I'm really deeply thinking and I'm envisioning what you're talking about over your right shoulder. So recognize it and give people observations. You can actively listen to observations. So say to the person, I noticed when so-and-so talked in the meeting, you rolled your eyes. Statement of fact. Now that person can come back and say, I rolled my eyes because I was thinking a ton. Or they can say, oh, that person drives me crazy. Or I'm really mad at that person. Okay, now we're talking, right? So observe through fact. It's not judgment. It's not anything. It's just a fact. You rolled your eyes. Other things, I noticed when we talk, you cross your arms. I remember early on in my career, there was somebody I was working with, and we had a staff room where there were 2 entrances. And whenever I entered in one way, the person left in the other. It was like revolving door. She never wanted to be in the same room with me. And so I said, hey, I notice every time I come in, you leave. Yeah. Okay. How come? Well, I find you condescending. Wow. Now we're talking, right? And in retrospect, I didn't have the training that I'm giving you for free because I was just young in my career and being fast-tracked and just bad first administrator experience in middle school. She was right to kind of dodge me. She didn't know where I was coming from. Okay. Got to own what you own, right? So make observations about what you see the person doing, right? I noticed in the last 3 meetings, you've canceled at the last minute. I have observed you never want to meet with me alone, right? Whatever the things are, just call out observable fact to get this person to kind of own, I'm angry about something that I'm not talking about, but I need to. Okay, so that's the second tip. First one is just recognize it. Second is give fact-based observations. And even in those fact-based observations, avoid, I think that you rolled your eyes when so-and-so talked. No. When so-and-so talked, you rolled your eyes. The last 3 meetings, you bailed at the last minute. State it as fact. Not, I think you. It's just going to blow up. It's going to add fuel to their anger that they're not willing to really expose. The third thing is arguably the hardest and might put you in the right mindset and headspace to really talk with this person. So dealing with passive-aggressive behaviors, a really powerful, and I kind of wince because this one's hard, is empathy. Put yourself in their shoes. What could trigger some anger for them? So for example, there's a leader I work with this week who has just gone off the rails, like some passive-aggressive behavior. It's not transparent, it's not overt, it's like talking behind people's back, and it's bad-mouthing, and it's... When I put myself in that person's shoes, I can appreciate some of their triggers. I do not appreciate the behavior. I don't appreciate the ripple effect of their behavior, but I get it. And so empathetically, I can lean into a conversation with that person if I were to call out their behaviors. So the empathy card is really nice to kind of either introduce or back up your observations. So I could say to someone, when I think about your onboarding this experience, it was really not very consistent. And as a result, I would imagine that has you feeling really unset up for success. Like, how are you feeling? Well, I'm fine. Are you fine? Because in our last meeting, I noticed you haven't said a word. What's going on? Well, I'm still fine. Okay. When I was sitting beside you in that meeting, I noticed that you just held your breath and held it in. Like I could hear you breathe out when you finally decided to breathe. What's going on? Well, and they'll start talking. Have a couple of back pocket observations ready to kind of dole out, because people initially may not even know that they're coming across passive aggressively, or they may know it and they don't want to let go of the power, which is a different conversation. I'm going to offer a Crucial Conversations workshop here coming up. That's where we really get into some of that model. Or people may not know that it's safe to talk with you. And so by really being empathetic and the person kind of, oh, it's fine. You keep showing your empathy, they're going to think, oh, maybe Carrie gets me. Maybe I want to talk through these challenges with her. So that empathy card can be very powerful in bringing people out of whatever they're angry about, giving them permission to feel and talk through whatever they're talking about. Passive aggressive behaviors are tough. Sometimes people aren't even aware of them. So those 3 strategies are king. 1, recognize it in others. 2, fact-based observations. And 3, get yourself in their shoes. Be empathetic to think what might be pulling on these behaviors. So, broad thinking, when I work with teams and really help teams slow down to go fast, it's also often this perception of passive aggressive behavior that really starts to dissolve a team. And that person doing some of the passive aggressive stuff often doesn't know it, or knows it and wants to be called on it. But they've done the behavior for so long, people don't feel comfortable calling them out because they're worried about retaliation. That's where I kind of had this analogy in my head that as an outsider in my role to kind of come in for a short term and support teams slow down to go fast, really identify what do they need to be doing to achieve those ambitious results. It's kind of like seeing a physician, right? I might complain to my partner, oh, I feel terrible today. And he's going to say, are you still going to go to work? Yeah, I'm going to go to work, but okay. Press snooze a couple more times. At 10 and 11 o'clock that day, I'm like, oh my goodness, my fever, I feel really crappy. I go to a walk-in clinic, that physician says like, gosh, I need to, listen to your lungs and heart and, take off your clothes and whatever exams would require that. And all of a sudden in front of a stranger, I'm like bearing it all, right? Where with my husband, I want to be brave and strong and I don't want to show this stuff. So that's the beautiful thing about helping people through some of this and teams through some patterns of behavior that are not great, passive aggressive being one of them, is as an outsider, I'm able to poke and prod and ask people to do things that you just don't really do with your family, right? You wanna look good and polished, and it's harder sometimes to be vulnerable with people close to you than it is with outsiders like the role I play. Anyway, all right. Top tips for dealing with passive aggressive behavior. I would love to hear some stories. Follow me on YouTube. I actually have 2 groups also that might be interesting for you right now on Facebook and LinkedIn, if those are platforms that work for you. Carrie Burchell's Communication Strategies and Tips, I think is what we've called it, but it starts with my name, so easy enough to get straight. Feel free to join. We're a week and a half into those. And same thing, just giving us a community to talk through some of these challenges and hear from other people that are answering some of the challenges too. All right, without further ado, stay safe, everybody. Oh, wrong mouse.